Hey everybody, just checking in. Prophet Frederick Delaney here. So we're going from the church age to the kingdom age, and we need some more instructions because, see, the church word actually was ecclesia or ecclesia. It means sent ones, sent out. So then it turned into this building, this congregation that doesn't go out, doesn't really be the church. They go to a church instead of be the church. So simply put, excuse me, simply put, the kingdom age is like it's like a community of believers where we all work together for the purpose. That's what a city was supposed to be. A city set on a hill. They incorporate the city. They work together, but then the problem is they take the money, they tax you and every which way, and they don't put back in the community. You got potholes on the roads. Because back in the day, before the IRS and before all the taxes and all that, you worked on the road in front of your house, and you could work on the road all the way down the street if you wanted to. But was all the organization of the USA at different times was where we worked together. The government didn't tax you to death on everything. So let's say like a biblical perspective, like if you gave what you could to help your neighbors and your friends, your neighbor store, your small communities. Like up here in Greenville, we have the Milltown, the little Milltown areas, but the mills have turned into lofts and apartments, and they rent them for a lot of money. And there's still a lot of gentrification, which is the poor and the rich, the separation where it's all division. And the blue collar workers, the blue collar workers, the first thing that goes in the economy is the blue collar workers, which are your maintenance people, from your janitors up to your mechanics, up to your electricians, carpenters, and everything else. And so everything already imploded, imploded. 2020 was hindsight, imploded. They imploded it, got everybody into fear and fear-based mentality, which it's always been. It's not been really a Jesus-based mentality because Jesus didn't start a religion called Christianity. They called it the way. Are you of the way? So the church goes out and spreads the good news, and then they switched it over to gospel and 4 songs and a sermon, 4 gospels and a sermon, 4 songs and a sermon. So it's gotten more and more and more corrupt and stagnated to where there's nothing wrong with having a building, having a meeting, having some worship, having some music, breaking bread and fellowship. But the true church would look more like, a small area of town where, they had a couple, 3 restaurants and everybody went in and paid their way and they fellowshipped and they broke bread. Be like Christmas at Farmer Gray's. So the kingdom age is being the church again instead of going to a church and being this corporation model, which is not correct. Where if we all work together to whatever degree and all pitched into whatever degree, if it could be a minute amount or could be a large amount, too much has been given, much is required. Too much is money have received, much is required from them. But everybody can do whatever in a small way. Like I said, if you forgot to take out your garbage, your neighbors would look out for each other. And, in our business, I work for some of the neighbors and they don't have the money that most of our clients have. So we give them neighbor deals, looking out for them, making sure that everything's correct and doing the work at a lesser cost. Because if they don't have much, they shouldn't have to suffer. So it all starts with you being the ecclesia and being the church, the heart-to-heart connection, being the church everywhere you go. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with having a meeting, a building down the street, but it'd be more profitable for the community if you broke bread and fellowshipped at a restaurant where everybody would pay, everybody would leave a good tip, and we share what the Lord's doing in our community, because the church is all about community. The ecclesia, the ecclesia, however you need to say it. It's all about community, communing with Him first, getting that heart-to-heart connection, and then doing what you can, and you would feel so much more joy and so much more friendship, and of course God would have the biggest family He ever created, that because they would give their hearts back to Him, because God so loved the world He gave His only begotten Son. Because the world was already condemned. If you read, the world was already condemned into corruption. So Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life is demonstration, demonstration of spirit and power to be the true communities. So simply put, to communities, and then we need to keep talking about teleportation too. Like everywhere God needs you, like if you go out to the restaurant or to the store, a lot of times you'll meet people, divine appointments. Stop along the way, smell the flowers. Be nice and kind. Be kind to the cashier, and don't be a brat. Okay, so we tried to demonstrate this in a little town in Manatee County, but they didn't understand the concept. Of course, we didn't live in their community, but we tried to get them to understand community so that the builders wouldn't come in and steal all their property. They use the word blight one day, and then they say exclusive downtown Sarasota, or exclusive downtown Burlington or Palmetto, exclusive downtown Greenville, or just several years ago, that Nickeltown and most of downtown in the I guess it's the lower part, north, south, east, and west, I believe, and there was all this nice stuff going on, but then there's all these poor people and poor houses. And then when you put a bigger house, a nicer house next to a poor man's house, you end up raising their taxes. So if they're only paying house tax on a $50,000 house, and then 3 or 4 years later, their house is, even though it looks like a shack, is worth like $500,000, which has happened here in Greenville, South Carolina. So it taxes them out of their house, so they are forced to sell it to the construction companies, the builders, and then they have to move farther and farther away from town. But they are the blue collar workers are what maintains everything. Your infrastructure and everything will collapse without having the mixture of the blue collar workers and the higher ups. So, and the towns have not really demonstrated this so far. Like Greenville is like in a state of revival in a sense, but it's tipped. It's leaning too far towards the rich, and they're displacing all the poor. And then, I meet people here that I've worked for that were working both husband and wife were working 2 jobs a wife and 3 jobs for the husband just to maintain, without them taking over the mortgage, putting them in, taking over their house and putting them in bankruptcy and taking everything from them. So we have to get this right in this time, how to be a true community, how to be a true believer, how to be a true disciple, how to be the church. And it's all very simple terms, but a lot of people think I'm too busy or, I don't want to help, but that's fine. We just need to start somewhere. And I've had a vision since I was 15 years old. I have a vision that started 50 years ago about building a house according to God's ways. And there's a lot of people who've been given the same vision, but the problem is it turns into like a religious, still a separation, not really a community. So they build these subdivisions, these communities, these 55-year and older communities, and try to keep and maintain, but they're not doing as good as they should be. But it's a percolation. It's a little bit of a speck of an understanding that if they all work together and, they kept up their yards and they have a restaurant or a massive mess hall or whatever you want to call it, to where the community can go and commune. And some of them, fly airplanes or little baby airplanes and little rockets and toys. And gives them a reason to get together, play cards, play board games. And so these communities like that are an understanding, but it's bigger than that. It's where Jesus purchased everything. He showed us an example of what to do, but we have yet to bring it together with the community of believers. So the vision also included like looking at the understanding of a ghost town. Okay, a ghost town, what came in is like industry came in, or they struck gold, or they grew cotton and made textiles like the mill towns here, and that starts the community. But then as time goes on, everything turns into big box stores, and then everything's farmed out to other countries. Like you look at the tags in your clothes, made in China, made in Indonesia, made somewhere way away. Um, so like I say, if it goes back to community, I wouldn't have a problem with not everything made in America, but now it's like barely anything's made in America. And the ecclesia, the real kingdom come, the real will being done on earth as in heaven. We need to talk about this. And then the teleportation, that if you didn't need a train, plane, automobile to have a meeting anywhere, shape, or form, anywhere on the planet, you could actually be there instantly wherever the Lord needs you to speak and help lay the groundwork to be the true community again. So in the past, the mill towns, they might not have made much money, but then they had mill houses where people at the mills got to live in these houses for very little rent. And I don't know what the parameters were on the contracts, but to go back to the real corner store, like there used to be 3 corner stores where my mom and dad lived in Lansing, Michigan. And then the north side, they call the north side, was actually the original downtown. And then as the industries came in, the cars, the motors, the GM, Oldsmobile, whatever, then everything moved further south and moved on to the river, the Grand River, which means large river. But then the problem is they polluted the river. They didn't do much for the community, except people made money there, but they forgot about keeping the area clean. So the river, they've tried to put fish in there, but the only fish that can live there are junk fish. Grand River, Junk River, and then some for some reason they tied in some of the sewer system into the river, and they've been untying it for a long time. But you can still go there, and you can smell the nastiness from these pipes that come from up the hill. So I'm not sure if all the infrastructure has been corrected yet. But then they have them, they always talk about the most potholes in the roads and everything else, but that's supposed to be paid for by gas taxes. So all these different taxes, and somebody's taking the money. It's not going back in the communities. So thieves and robbers, keep coming in. Like you watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life at Christmas time, and you got Old Man Potter, which he thought about giving back the money. But then no, he didn't give back the money, which caused the devastation of George, and then George wanted to kill himself. But then when it all came back, that he got his love back and realized that he had touched so many lives, and that he tried to be a friend to everybody, which you can't be a friend to everybody, but everybody in the town knew and loved George. And so in the end of the movie, even though it's a movie, they threw all that money in the bushel basket. And George was considered the richest man in town because he had the most friends. And when George was in trouble, and Mary, his wife, told people that George was in trouble, they all came in to help. They all pitched in to bail out the Bailey. You think, the writer in this, you think of bail out the Bailey savings and loan. And they made all these houses affordable with very little interest because they were part of a community. So you should watch that and think about how can we do this in this time. Can we go and buy a ghost town and bring revitalization to it. Start out by bringing in a restaurant and bringing in little small stores, mom and pops, because the big box stores implode your community. So when Walmart, Kmart, which Kmart's not there anymore as far as I know, and then they come in and the big box store ruins mom and pop's business, ruins the plumbers, carpenters, electricians. The bigger business, the bigger corporations, they hire hundreds of, if not thousands of people, but it ruins the natural love and life in the communities. It ruins that nostalgic time where everybody seems to want to go back to that. That's why some people love antiques. I love old houses because I work on a lot of houses. I'd love to own a nice old house that's been repaired correctly, not repaired wrong, because a lot of stuff is messed up. So I just leave you with that. Keep this a little bit shorter, 16 minutes or so. So be the church. Be thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Don't be a stagnating, sit on the bench. Keep going to A instead of being a Christ in. Amen.